Airstrikes have not stopped ISIS militants from gaining ground in the Syrian town of Kobani, and US officials admit it's about to fall into extremist hands.
Yeah, Kurdish forces have been battling ISIS for control of the Turkish border town for weeks now. Chief US security correspondent Jim Sciutto has more.
With Kobani on the brink of falling into the hands of ISIS, a Kurdish rebel told CNN the US-led coalition finally woke up. With the situation on the ground deteriorating, coalition warplanes unleashed several airstrikes overnight and into the day. Relieved Kurdish fighters welcomed them. However, US officials are making clear that saving Kobani is not a priority inside Syria.
Certainly no one wants to see Kobani fall, but our primary objective here is preventing ISIL from gaining a safe haven.
Airstrikes in Syria remain focused on ISIS command and control, critical infrastructure, and funding sources, principally oil. Still, as he visited the refugee camps across the border in Turkey where many of Kobani's residents have fled, the Turkish president said even the broader air campaign is doomed to fail.
You cannot resolve this conflict with air bombardments. Months have gone, but nothing is achieved. Right now, Kobani is about to fall.
In his own country, however, demonstrators are demanding that Turkey do its part. Turkey's Kurdish minority taking to the streets in protest that turned violent. The Turkish parliament authorized military action in Syria last week, but President Erdogan has yet to take it. Turkey's priority is less combating ISIS than taking down the government of Bashar al-Assad.
The more ambitious goal is to topple the regime in Syria and to put in place a friendly regime that's going to look first and foremost to Ankara for guidance.
Jim Sciutto, CNN, Washington. The siege of Kobani is sparking calls for action from around the world.
In Brussels, about 50 Kurdish protesters stormed the European Parliament building. Belgium is taking part in airstrikes in Iraq, but the protesters are demanding tougher action.
And this was the scene in Munster, Germany, where protesters rallied to show their solidarity with the people of Kobani. Demonstrators in Stuttgart also marched, and they headed to the Turkish consulate.
And in London, protesters at Heathrow Airport called for the British government to arm the Kurdish fighters battling ISIS in Kobani.
Meantime, 4 men are under arrest in London, suspected of planning a terror attack.
Officials say the 20 and 21-year-olds are part of an ongoing investigation into Islamist extremism. Senior international correspondent Nick Robertson has the details.
The Metropolitan Police Commissioner in London says that this was a serious case, that the police are taking a more interventionist policy action, if you will, and that these arrests relate or have ties going back to Iraq and Syria. An indication, therefore, not saying it specifically, but an indication, therefore, that they may have links to ISIS.
Officers say one suspect was tasered in the raid but was not injured. Police are not revealing any details about the alleged plot.
Of course, the growing concerns about terror by Islamist groups like ISIS have, for some, cast the religion of Islam in a pretty harsh light.
Yeah, CNN's Sunnima Udas visited a madrasa in India, home to the world's second largest Muslim population. She spoke to students and teachers who insist that Muslims should follow moderate traditions.
Thousands of miles from the war against ISIS, Indian Muslims lament. To those who have lost their way, let us show them the right path and spread the message of humanity, they sing. ISIS militants, Al-Qaeda, or anyone who practices terror are murderers, they say, and against Islam. This is just one of tens of thousands of madrasas in India. While the focus is religion, the Indian government is pushing all madrasas to modernize. We are learning history, geography, science, math, different languages like English, Arabic, and Farsi. So the perception that madrasas radicalize is completely wrong, he says.
Until it was lost to view.
At this English class, students learn John Keats.
Musical kite.
Madrasa officials say they're teaching the students everything they need to to be a good human being and get a decent job. Whilst there is room for improvement, they strive to balance tradition with modernity.
What is modern and what is not is of course all relative, but this madrasa says it is being progressive and teaching the 500 students who study and live here the latest curriculum.
There are some 175 million Muslims in India, the second largest Muslim population in the world. Perhaps no surprise, Al-Qaeda would want to set up a branch here. In this video address, Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri urging Muslims across South Asia to raise the flag of jihad. But in India, most say Al-Qaeda is unlikely to succeed.
Quite impossible.
It is only when people are subjected to injustice or oppressed that people become extremists. Muslims in India are generally not persecuted and were more educated, he says. Most of these men are proud of their moderate tradition, advocating strongly against any form of extremism, loath to say or do anything that would strain the country's multi-religious social fabric. Sulima Udas, CNN, Uttar Pradesh, India.